Hello, welcome to Insights in Action with Orange 142, where we interview agency leaders and business owners to uncover the journeys, strategies, and insights that drive their success. At Orange 142, we're all about transforming brand stories into impactful digital experiences through innovative media and marketing solutions. And today, I'm super lucky to be joined by Jamal Rashad of Rashad Group. How's it going, Jamal?
Man, it's going good. It's going good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Jamal, I'm curious. I was checking out the website and everything, and I would love to hear a little bit more about your background, what brought you to where you are now, and a little bit about your company, Rashad Group.
Yeah, my background is very unconventional, which the joke that I make is a lot of us that have done a lot of different things, we fall into a consulting realm, you know what I mean? And oftentimes I have a hard time, depending on the setting, articulating just how long this journey's been. But I would say my story originally starts from the very beginning. I played collegiate sports. My dad played and coached pro basketball. My mom worked for an entertainment law firm, still does for the last 50 years. So I was uniquely right in between sports and entertainment for a very long time. I had a career ending injury in college that kind of forced me to have to really think about the next part of my life and what really wanted to do. And a thing that I've become very passionate about is athletes transitioning into the corporate business space. Because a lot of us, if you have aspirations of playing professionally at a very high level, you dedicate so much of your life to a craft and it doesn't really allow you to find other interests and find other things that you're good at. At the time, I saw an opportunity to shift the power dynamic in college sports. Most people that are watching college sports now, there's NIL and players getting paid, but when we were playing, it wasn't the same. And if a booster or a donor gave you free lunch or bought you tickets to a concert, you had to worry about losing your eligibility. And everybody else in the system was able to kind of operate and move freely. Coaches, administration, everybody can go from school to school. And the players were there was no transfer portal, none of this stuff now. So I created disruptive technology that basically functioned like Yelp, but for college sports, a way that college athletes could anonymously rate and review their schools and their experiences and grassroots change and shift the power dynamic. And so I had to figure out how I was going to fund that project. Knew a lot about sports, knew nothing about tech. And this was at a time where tech was going through a transformation, right? We were going from websites to cross-platform websites to apps and everything was shifting. The incubator and the accelerator industries just started to emerge. And so funny enough, I got into sports performance, physical and mental training, and started working with some pro athletes here in LA. And I thought it was just going to be like a momentary thing. And the irony is that I thought that's what I wanted to do when I was young. And then once my career came to an end, it was kind of like a bad ex-girlfriend. It was like, I just wanted nothing to do with sports. And I switched my major in college from kinesiology to international business. And then of course, now here I am jumping back into the performance space, working with athletes. So of course I had to do all the certifications and go back and get all that stuff. But yeah, I ended up working with some really young talent, guys like Paul George, John Wall, and getting exposed to some vets, Baron Davis and Tyson Chandler. And a lot of things just kind of started to opening up or just started opening up at the time. The industry was at a really good place because players started making more money. So they were starting to decide who they were working with and who they were not working with. And it was a great time. And most people that did what I did at the time, they didn't look like me. So for a lot of players, I think it was very refreshing to work with another young Black entrepreneur or coach or what have you. So I basically ran the tech company and this performance business in tandem for about 5 years. And all the ups and downs of entrepreneurship that you could imagine, it's for people that have taken that road, it's brutal. You know what I mean? But it's not for everybody. So probably about 5 or 6 years into that, we saw an opportunity to create a one-stop shop because LA is very fragmented and you have players that are going to UCLA for the court. They're coming to me for training. They're going to who ended up being a business partner of mine who was a physical therapist. And you're driving around the whole entire city. And it obviously is not the place to be driving around all day and you're sitting in traffic or whatnot. So we had the idea of basically creating a one-stop shop where we basically put performance and PT all in the same location. We had 2 failed attempts and third time was a charm. We kind of figured out the right business model. And we opened up that first location in 2018. I went back to business school. Not because I ever thought that I wouldn't be an entrepreneur, but I wanted to have, really, I guess if I wanted to have like really a backup plan. And in the event that I lost everything on some project or some venture. I always didn't go back and get a job. So I went back to business school, and then me and my partner agreed that I would take a CEO role. And we maxed out that space in about 6 months and weren't really prepared for it. And so I stepped in as CEO about 9 months later. And then 5 months after that, COVID hit. And I was a young entrepreneur, young CEO, and my 4 months into a role like that, I had to let go of all of our staff, which was pretty crazy. And like a lot of companies, it was you're trying to survive and trying to stay afloat. But at the same time, I had a mentor years ago that taught me the value of catastrophe. And unfortunately, it can lead to opportunity depending on how you look at it. And I think it's a very valuable lesson for us to look at things as the glass half full rather than half empty, right? And so I said, well, you know what? We have an opportunity to stay open because we had a medical license and obviously operating within compliance of the city and whatnot. But I thought it was an opportunity for us to stay open and continue serving our clients. So I asked a small group of our staff if they felt comfortable. Everybody agreed. And we basically ran a skeleton crew for about 6 months. And pro athletes that were trying to get ready for the NBA bubble or ready for the NFL season, if you were in LA, there was not too many places you can go. And through that, everything exploded because we ended up working with every sports agency in LA, CAA, Clutch, WME, Life Sports, shout out to Tyler Ramisar. And yeah, so it was an incredible move for us. And we were able to hire all the staff back plus more, which is a huge priority of mine. And then we scaled that business to 5 locations over a span of 5 years.
Wow.
And it was awesome. At the same time, I knew that what I wanted to do for the rest, like my entire career, was not in the sports performance space. It was more so I've been good at being able to identify opportunity. And that's kind of what that was. And me and my business partner just had a different approach to scaling the business. And I needed to be in a space where I could really, really spread my wings and fully leverage who I am as a person, as an individual, and as an entrepreneur to really step into, I guess, my greatness and what I saw for myself. And so probably about a year before that 5-year timeline, I wanted to start doing more consulting work. And like everything else, I just threw myself into it. So I supported and helped business owners, everything that you could imagine, man, from CBD companies to a permanent makeup line to sports tech, which is an area that I kind of fell into naturally. And that was about 4 years ago. And now where we've kind of settled, I have another business partner, brilliant guy that is a computer engineer by trade, worked in the hedge fund space. And collectively, we support companies and founders in really 2 ways. One is helping them raise capital. And we just do that through a private network of individuals, investment groups that we have, and we help support those efforts. And then the second thing was really be business consulting, but it's like just like an overarching phrase of a variety of things that we do to really just step in and help. Everything from solidifying corporate strategic partnerships, management consulting. We've done some consulting on board governance. I think now we're in a time, there's so many new entrepreneurs that people are just, they need just support and they need help. And I think what I've always thrived on is just listening to what people want. Like, it's so simple, but listen to what people want, listen to what they're asking for, where they need help, and then you just help them there and you just figure out a way to monetize it. Wow. And the last thing I'll say, I know this is becoming a long story, but last thing I'll say is that what shifted that was I was listening to a podcast, which is why comes full circle. A friend of mine told me about a podcast, and in this podcast, matter of fact, the speaker was Naval, and he was talking about, it's amazing. He was talking about avoiding competition through authenticity. And so I sat with that and I was like, okay, if I'm going to create now a 3rd company, and the first 2 companies that I had, again, different issues that happened with my business partners independently, nothing of me that then affected the business. It was like, I want to do something that is an extension of me and who I am. And I want to figure out how to monetize that. So I just reflected on what I'd always done my entire life, which was build close relationships, understand who people are, and understand what they need and where I can support them, and then just monetize that. And so company culture was the first area that I wanted to step into, but I learned really early on that company culture is such an intimate thing that I had to provide other value in order to be able to have those company culture conversations. And so naturally, everybody's looking for money and everybody's looking for help and resources and collaboration. So it kind of was like a natural progression.
Wow. What a story. What a background. That's awesome.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you come from his family of very hard workers, it seems, especially in the sports world, and having this very this pivotal moment in your life where your sports career ended. That's mine ended too, not because I got injured, but because I didn't grow tall enough to be a
Yeah.
basketball player at the college level.
We went through that transition and we learned.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I stopped at 6 feet. I'm like, I'm not making
Yeah.
it. I better go into business or something.
What I tell people, what I argue is that as athletes, if you play a sport at a high level up to high school, you are viewing yourself as I viewed myself as Jamal, the football player. You know what I mean? Like he's
Yeah.
talented, he's right. And so what happens is when that comes to an end, we all kind of go through this identity crisis. And the longer you play, the harder that is, right? I have friends of mine, clients I've worked with 20 years playing professional sports, have all the money in the world. They still have to
Yeah.
play the transition and they have no clue oftentimes what to do. Not everybody. Some people are lucky and fortunate, but a lot of people, we all struggle with that transition process.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. When you do something for so long that it becomes your identity. And the reason why you go to school in high school is this is why I'm going, so I can go further. That is a hard transition. So that's a very cool and interesting niche that you carved out for yourself back then to kind of help athletes with that sort of transition. So that's really cool and awesome. By the way, I could talk basketball all day. I'm a diehard Suns fan, so nobody fine. But that's really cool that you worked with a lot of really cool professional athletes. And I think the biggest thing for me is kind of where you've landed now. Everything in your life has kind of led you to this point to starting Rashad Group. And it's now become more than just all of your unique experiences have led to you working with businesses and doing what you guys do. And I guess I'm curious, you mentioned listening, and I think that's a big thing. I come from the sales world. So we always talk, the way I train salespeople is always you're a doctor prescribing a solution. That's it. So many people, you're so right. So many people they tell people how to buy and they tell how to people, but they don't ask enough questions and they don't understand the problems. And so I know that Group's mission focuses on supporting businesses in any way possible, from raising capital to strategic partnerships. And I guess I'm curious, how do you determine the most impactful form of support for each client's unique needs? What's that like beyond the questions and everything? What kind of leads you to those types of decisions?
I think it's so funny, man. I feel like there's more conversation now around this nuance of connection, energy, and we're using these words more now than ever. And there's an energy to the people that you're working with. You know, it's like it starts with questions, as you said, and you listen intently and understand what people are looking for. You also try and find what they are looking for, but they're not necessarily able to express. You know what I mean? And to me, it's like it's a path. You know what I mean? And you walk down that path with somebody and you just remain vigilant. And through that process, you understand kind of what they're looking for and where you can provide support. I think oftentimes, especially in the business world, we're so transactional. Everything is about a sale. Everything is about, and the reality is a lot of the opportunity that I've been given in my life, which I've been very blessed, thank God, but has really come from looking to support and looking to help people without expectation. You know what I mean? And there's people out there that are talking about it. You have the Gary V's and a couple of these like thought leaders that talk about provide value, and then it comes. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people, one of the things that I'm yelling from the mountaintop these days is that in sports, okay, let's use this example because you're a sports guy too, right? You understood that at your height, okay, center was not the position for you. Okay. I'm 5'11". Center was not the position for me either. Okay. Neither was quarterback. So you got a couple guys now, but you get my point. Okay.
Yeah.
As athletes, we are conditioned to understanding this is my strength. This is my weakness. Right. I need to improve my weaknesses, but let me play into my strengths. Okay. In corporate America, in college, in the business sector, we are not taught that. We are taught to pursue the things that you love, and that's great. But what about all the nuance in between? Like I may love numbers, but me being an accountant that's not my thing. You know what I mean? Like maybe there's a different capacity. You know what I mean? And I think we're not really taught that. And I think those are the things that really embody me and that have helped me a lot. And I lead with those things a lot with the companies that I work with, right? It's again, getting an understanding of if it's a founder or if it's a company, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Like we've been conditioned to using SWOT analysis for years, the beginning of time, right? But we never run them on individuals, right?
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
yourself are an enterprise. You are a
Yeah.
business. You represent You're a brand,
Exactly.
right? You have strength, you have weaknesses, both internal and external, right? Being your opportunities, your threats. So it's like a lot of these traditional frameworks that we're very familiar with, I tend to use them in kind of different ways, in nuanced ways that can really be beneficial. I look to help founders and entrepreneurs any way that I can. So even if it's just supporting them, some coaching, some advice for free
Mm.
sometimes, like just to really support and help people on that side of it. And in the area that I'm kind of starting to shift into is there's like there are these standards in all industry and in the investment space. We are conditioned to believing that you take 10 shots and if one of them hits, it's successful. And I don't know how much you've seen the Mike Tomlin, the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay. Recently, he made a statement about that he does something to the effect of not understanding coaches that don't want to coach. Okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And the argument was that in the NFL, coaches and GMs are looking for players that are already refined,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they just want to plug them in and play. And if you fit and you can do the job, great. If not, we let you go. Okay. And his nuance is that he looks for players or is not scared to coach, is not scared to take on a player that he can improve. And I think that duality is very similar to what you're seeing in the investment space. It's we're looking at the analytics, we're looking at the financials. If they hit, if they don't, it's 1 out of 10.
Yeah.
To me, there's more and more VCs, PEs, family offices that are now participating in some of these spaces. That to me is an opportunity to provide more value to the companies that you're bringing on. It's not just about where they're at and where they can perform. How can you add value to them to increase the chances of them performing at a high level or increase the chances of success rather than just sitting behind a desk and using the 1 out of 10 theory to me, as an excuse for not being that good. You know what I mean? So that's really what I'm incredibly passionate about now is how these funds, their investment thesis, how they participate specifically in the sports, entertainment, and tech space, and how they go about adding value to the companies that they're working with, not just looking at their financials, writing a check, and just saying, oh, if it fails, if it doesn't, if it succeeds, great.
Yeah. Wow. So much of what you said there, everything you said there is so fantastic, especially the first part in terms of self-awareness. You know what I mean? This is a big thing. And I know a lot of thought leaders are pushing that. And you're right, as athletes, we do learn that very quickly because we've got this instant feedback loop. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's
And
about,
people that you suck.
yeah. Oh,
They
yeah.
tell you, bro, that you're not good at that, man. You suck.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And, you know, in the business world, if you're trying to be an entrepreneur, there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that probably don't best belong as like the leader of the company. They might be better off as a CMO. And so you need to have that, the getting kicked in the face a little bit. And even in that transition to value, I know this is a lot of stuff that Gary Vee says himself, and he's iconic for the jab right hook. And now people are even expanding upon that. Where Mosey says the longer you can delay your ask, the bigger you can ask. And
For
so
sure.
exactly back to what you were saying, you know what I mean? Providing value over and over again. And so it really seems like that's what you do externally with your clients, but also internally with your employees, because I know that company culture and purpose is really important for you. And so for this last question, I guess I'm curious, in your experience, what impact does a strong sense of purpose have on a company's ability to attract investment and form meaningful partnerships?
And that's a great question. I actually want to go back to one thing you said before when you were talking about the idea of how many times you ask or how long you can delay that. Part of understanding who you are is that if you are a person that tends to give too much or
Yeah.
overextend yourself, then you can get into a dangerous place of giving too much before you look for an ask. And it goes back to this idea of self-awareness, because if I understand who I am, now I can take these different frameworks and I can see which ones apply to me and which ones don't.
Right.
But in regards to purpose, I think purpose is everything, man. I think it's everything. It is, there's a reason why people say that it starts from the top. Things trickle down. It's no matter how you cut it, I believe that the success of a business is contingent upon its senior leadership. And that senior leadership, there is somebody that's in charge that is dictating that senior group. You know what I mean? So it is this triangle, this pyramid type of thing. And everybody is buying into a vision or is not buying into a vision because it doesn't exist. You know what I mean? You can't create vision without some sense of purpose. And the purpose thing is a little bit tricky because I know a lot of people struggle with that. What is my purpose? And there's a lot of spiritual components to that. You know what I mean? But, I think oftentimes purposes can change. You don't have to have a lifetime purpose. For a while, I thought my purpose was to play professional football. And even if it was my purpose, that was going to come to an end. You know what I mean? Like, we have to be willing to re-examine what we believe our purpose is. And when you find that thing, you go for it. And I use the analogy of climbing a mountain because I think entrepreneurship and starting a business is that. Some mountains are smaller than others, but ultimately you identify the mountain you want to climb. And if that mountain has snow, you better make sure you bring your snowshoes and your ice picks or whatever. If that mountain is made of sand, you won't need some of that stuff. So to me, it's about identify the mountain that you're trying to climb,
Yeah.
get clear on that first, and then you work backwards from there. We do that in sport, right? The goal is to win a championship. Where do you start? You know what I mean? So it's the same thing. And if you get halfway up that mountain and you're like, you know what? I don't want to climb this sandy mountain. I want to go climb this rocky mountain. That's what we call a pivot.
Yeah,
You pivot
exactly.
but it's
Well,
all the
and
same thing.
the problem is that everybody is trying to climb Mount Everest so many times in business. When
Yep.
it's not this, I have a very good friend who told me, that, hey, not every business is, it just has to be like this million, 8-figure,
Yeah.
whatever type of business. If it gets to a decent amount where it's like, whatever, that's fine. That's okay. You know what I mean? You're going to have other opportunities. And I think that's kind of changed even my view because I'm like, as an entrepreneur on my end as well, I've built businesses before and I've tried to be like, okay, this is going to be the next Amazon. And that's like, those are home runs every once in a while. Uh, but Jamal, this has been awesome. This is one of my favorite podcasts
Thanks, man.
episodes
I
so
really
far.
enjoy this.
We got really philosophical, which is like just my vibe, which is awesome.
Amazing. Amazing.
Where can people find out more about you? Where can people find out more about your company?
Probably the simplest thing is either going to be, I have an IG. I don't really do a ton of business through it, but the company website is rashadgroup.co. And through that forum, I think the company page, if I'm not mistaken, is on the social on the company website. So people, it's not very difficult to find me. You know what I mean? So people can reach out to me and get in contact with me, reach out to the company, and I'm completely open to engaging with awesome people, man. I think we're in a really exciting time, no matter what people's political views are versus one or the other. Not here for that, but I think that right now is a time for all of us to now come back together and move forward because the country as a whole is a group of individuals, right? And no different than any other organization, we will be able to have more success by working together than working independently. So now is a great time. I think a lot of shifts are happening in society and business that I'm looking forward to. And
Said awesome. Thank you so much, Jamal. This is great.
man, my pleasure, man. Thank you so much.